Hi, everyone. I'm Amanda from the Repurpose Project, and I'm here to talk to you today about part 2 of our zero waste education program called the Ecology of Zero Waste. In this module, we're going to talk about where does your trash go? So as far as in Alachua County, the trash that we either put at the curb or put in a dumpster, it goes to the Levita Brown Environmental Park and Transfer Station. So this transfer station is located on the northeast part of Gainesville, and I have shared a video with your teacher that Alachua County created, and hopefully they'll be able to show it to you. It's about 2.5 minutes long. So I want to talk just for a minute about trash. So in general, we call it trash, we call it garbage, but you learned in last week's episode that basically we're throwing away resources. And when we throw resources away, we're basically wasting those resources. So sometimes in the zero waste world, we call these discarded materials or discarded resources. So I'm encouraging you to keep on thinking about everything you throw away and think about them as resources that came from the earth. But right now we're going to explore where those discarded materials go. So like I said, first they go to the transfer station, which is located in northeast Gainesville. And from there, they go to the New River landfill. But first, let's talk about the Levita Brown Environmental Park and Transfer Station. So this transfer station is located in northeast Gainesville, and it's where our residential and commercial, meaning business and also school, discarding materials go. So when the stuff comes here, it gets transferred onto longer trucks, and those long semi-trailer truck type trucks go to the New River landfill. So this transfer station also takes our recyclables. So the recyclables go to a materials recovery facility. We'll talk more about recyclables later on in another lesson. This transfer station also has the hazardous waste facility. They also take yard waste here, and individuals can drop off items here as well, like appliances and tires and scrap metal. But let's talk about the landfill for a little while. So a landfill basically is a place, a really big section of land on our earth where they dig a big hole and they bury our trash, or they bury our discarded materials, or as you guys know, they're all resources. So when we have a landfill that manages our discarded material, basically what they're doing is they're burying resources that can't be used again. So this landfill is 35 miles north of Gainesville. It's in Union County, so a different county from us. So basically we are exporting our waste. We're sending it to another county to deal with. We send up to 800 tons of discarded materials a day from Alachua County to this landfill, and that is a lot. That takes 33 trucks back and forth. That's a lot of discarded material traveling on the roads and getting buried every day. The thing about landfills is that they're not the greatest thing for the environment, for the ecosystems, and for the neighboring communities. So landfills burn methane, and methane is a greenhouse gas that can trap a lot of heat. So it really warms up our climate and contributes to climate change. Landfills often give off a lot of methane, especially from the food scraps and the other organic material like yard waste and paper products that get sent there. So my job as a zero waste professional is I encourage people to send less and less organic material like food scraps and paper and yard waste to a landfill. And you guys are already part of that solution. You guys are source separating your food scraps out. So less food scraps are actually going to this landfill. So you guys should be really proud of that. The other thing about a landfill is that all landfills create leachate. And that's kind of a funny word, but leachate basically is a liquid that forms in a landfill because wet stuff gets put in landfills and just the rain that falls into a landfill. So it creates a leachate. And unfortunately, this leachate, this liquid, is often toxic. So that leachate can affect the neighboring communities, the people who live there, the animals and plants that live there, and the ecosystems around them. So what I encourage you to do, everybody within your school, at home, in your neighborhood, is to reduce the amount of discarded materials that we send to the landfill. So landfills have been around for a really long time, but really organized and managed landfills have only been around for less than 100 years. There are laws in place that regulate landfills, meaning they have to be operated in a certain way to reduce the negative harmful effects to the environment. But regardless of those rules, they still negatively affect the environment, and we should all work really hard to reduce the materials that we're sending to a landfill. But just in short, how a landfill works is basically all of the discarded materials that come to a landfill one day, they fill up what's called a cell. At the end of the day, when they're done receiving discarded material for the day, they'll cover up that cell with sometimes with dirt, sometimes with vegetation, sometimes actually even with crushed up glass to kind of seal it in. But you know what? Nothing happens to that stuff in a landfill. It doesn't decompose. It doesn't even really change. People have dug up materials from landfills decades later, and they were still able to read a newspaper. It's pretty phenomenal. Basically, we're just hiding all of those valuable resources in the ground and creating toxins and affecting the neighboring communities and ecosystems, unfortunately. So we should all work to reduce what we're sending to a landfill. Another reason is when we bury resources, we have to go back to the beginning and extract natural resources to make new products and new packaging. And that just starts this linear chain that you guys learned about previously. And it's not contributing to a circular economy, meaning a circular system of resource use. So we don't want that. We already talked about the methane. Methane is created from landfills and leachate is created from landfills. Both of those negatively affect our environment. So we want to work to reducing the amount of materials and resources that we're sending to the landfill. And I want to just stress that there is no away. When we put our discarded materials at the curb, they go away from our house. When we take the trash out from our school, it goes away from our school. But there really is no away because a landfill is always sited near people's houses, near communities, also near ecosystems. So it's called the New River landfill, and that's because there is a new river, a river called the New River right next to it. All landfills end up leaching some toxic leachate, even the best managed landfills. So landfills affect the ecosystems, and there really just is no way. The best thing to do is to reduce the amount of materials you produce that would need to go to a landfill. So the lesson for this module is source separation. So instead of commingling everything into one garbage can, meaning putting everything in there without regards to what type of material it is or where it goes, we want to source separate. So you guys are already doing that with food scraps. By collecting the food scraps in a composting bin, you're source separating those food scraps. That's pretty amazing. So I want you to try to source separate everything in your life. So if something's recyclable, find a recycle bin. There are many at your school. If you think something's reusable, keep that separate. Don't throw it away, reuse it. So source separation means that in your home or your school or where you work in the future, that's your source. So you want to keep the discarded materials or the resources that you've used separate so that you can keep them valuable and they can get to the appropriate place to continue in a circular system of resource use. So for food scraps, that circular system of resource use means the food scraps are kept separate and they go to a composting facility. With recyclables, it means all of the paper is not going to the landfill. Instead, it's going to a recycling center, and then that paper will get used to make new paper. So the lesson plan for this is to really think about source separation and think about reducing the waste or the discarded materials that you produce, and share what you learned about landfills with your friends and with your family, and kind of think critically about why humans developed a system to bury resources. It's kind of odd. It's definitely not natural. So the next lesson is called Nothing in Nature is Wasted, and it's one of my favorite lessons to talk about. So I'm really excited about that, and you'll get that next week. Thank you.